Is the federal independent MP Rob Oakeshott, and I believe Tony Windsor is with him too.
Was what we found out about an hour ago, and something that hasn't been part of the multi-party climate change committee process, and that is a decision by government to squirrel away $12 million for a taxpayer-funded advertising campaign, essentially at an incredibly sensitive time in a negotiation that is complex. There is only one word for this announcement today, and that is unhelpful. And I would strongly urge government to consider and reconsider their decision to put the focus on selling something that doesn't exist, and to put the focus on getting a good policy that should sell itself. So happy to take some questions, and Tony, whether you wanted to add some comment.
Well, just to endorse Rob's remarks, I found it a little fascinating, to say the least, that the government would announce a sum of money that was going to be used to promote something that doesn't yet exist. The next fortnight are pretty crucial in terms of the multi-party climate change committee trying to work through a process. That's been going on for some time, but it hasn't been concluded. And I think the only conclusion that people can draw from the announcement that an amount of money is going to become available to promote the carbon tax is a presumption that the committee has actually made a decision that there will be one, and that hasn't occurred as yet. And I just endorse the final remarks that Rob made, and I think we're better off to actually try and get the policy mix right, rather than aiming to promote something that may or may not be the right sort of policy, because we don't know what it is.
So, Mr Windsor, do you acknowledge that you will need to try and sell the carbon tax idea, or whatever you come up with, to the general public? That there should be some sort of...
I don't have an issue about that, but we don't have a carbon tax. Making an announcement and then saying it'll have to be put through the multi-party climate change committee for endorsement or otherwise on something that hasn't been agreed to yet, I think just a little bit premature.
And the timing, can I just add that, and the timing of the announcement is incredibly unhelpful, in that it is over the next week and a half where we really are down to the pointy end of some sensitive and complex discussions. Just to throw this one in the mix, as I said before, it is unhelpful.
Pressure on you? Unfairly putting pressure on you guys to get a deal?
In defence of the process and in defence of trying to get something that I have consistently argued since turning up in this building in 2008, this is unhelpful. So, if anything, it is trying to keep this negotiation on track, that we're standing here raising how unhelpful it is that government has not only decided to throw it in the mix today, but has obviously been working on something which there has been no consultation with the multi-party climate change committee on. We found out about this about an hour ago.
Why exactly is it unhelpful?
Consulted?
Sorry?
Do you expect the government to will tell you their plans before they announce the advertising campaign?
Well, it's directly related to what we're negotiating, and I think that is in the government's media release, that $12 million of taxpayers' money will be spent if an agreement can be reached. I would have thought, if nothing more than an act of courtesy, that those that have skin in this game and are significantly trying to contribute for the right reasons to get the right outcome, that government would have considered including those stakeholders in the mix of a decision which is obviously going to cause public conversations and concerns. It is not only about keeping the stakeholders at the table, it is about keeping a process on track. So to put it in the mix today is unhelpful, And from my perspective, I totally disagree with the decision and totally disassociate myself from the decision.
I think the other issue there, the real issue we're talking about too, is not so much that the government doesn't have the right to promote a various policy line. You know, that's happened historically by a whole range of governments, but it's the presumption that there's going to be money spent on something that doesn't exist.
But isn't it prudent?
And I don't think that's very helpful.
Isn't it prudent though for them to set some
Well,
money
I
aside?
don't think it's terribly prudent to announce a sum of money to promote something that doesn't exist and then say it's going to have to go through a process for vetting as to whether it's actually spent if something does exist. I think it's...
And particularly
there's
now...
obviously other motives in it.
How harmful will this be to the actual negotiations? Is it possible that this could mean a delaying in the timing of the committee's report to the government?
Well, I wouldn't see that. The committee's got to try and work out a process. That hasn't occurred yet, and promoting something that hasn't occurred I don't think is terribly useful.
You're saying it's
There
being
are other
unhelpful.
motives involved. What are those other motives?
I'll leave that to you guys.
But you're saying it's being unhelpful. My question is, if it is being unhelpful, is it going to harm the negotiations, and what are the implications for that policy to the government?
Well, it won't harm them from my perspective. I think we've all been very genuine in terms of the intent. You know, the easy thing for us would have been just walk away from this and let government put up the piece of legislation and then make a decision on the piece of legislation. This is a bigger issue than that, and it deserves the sort of consideration that it is getting, but it doesn't deserve to be trivialised by announcing some sort of promotion campaign when we're probably weeks from determining what the outcome is, if any.
And I'd add to that, Gemma, because I think there are a lot of people giving a lot to try and get the right outcome through this process. And, you know, this is a dumb call at the wrong time. This is essentially not helping at a really critical and sensitive moment in trying to pull this deal together.
Gentlemen, how are the negotiations going? And do you think you can get a deal by June 30 or whenever the deadline is?
Well, we're trying, but things like this don't help that process. I'm on the aspirational side, as you all know. I am hopeful, but I'm more focused on trying to get the right outcome.
We'll just break in there because the Victorian Police Commissioner Simon Overland is starting that press conference.
My resignation